In this update, we are tracking our first major hurricane of the season with Hurricane Erin. Plus, we've got multiple storms to talk about, and then a fairly decent cool shot that's coming by the end of August. So let's break down the details for you. Take a look at the satellite picture and look what's taking all the energy out in the Atlantic. That is Hurricane Erin, currently as a category 4. It did bump up to a category 5 yesterday. It went through what's called an eye wall replacement cycle, and it's coming out of that now. And the thing about Erin, it's going to expand in size and nearly double in size from what it just was just yesterday, at least the tropical storm force winds. It's got a formidable eye. At one point, it had 35 mile per hour, 35 mile wide eye, and now that's actually condensing. So it's actually getting stronger yet again, back up to another category 440 mile per hour major hurricane, 937 millibars. Plus, we have these storms up here across Minnesota and Iowa that we'll be contending with today. Those will be diving southeast right across the boundary with a little bit of a cool shot underneath it. But just to the north of that, that's where you're in that soupy air mass and getting those strong thunderstorms breaking out in the heat of the afternoon across South Dakota, back into Nebraska region, getting into the northern interior of Kansas. And then we also have another cluster of thunderstorms that will be moving over the Milwaukee region, where they had just a couple weeks ago with all that flooding contending with out there. And then a little bit further south, a little bit lighter activity as you trend a little bit further south. But out in the tropics, there is the wind field. So just yesterday, it was 230 miles, nautical miles wide. Now it's over 400 miles, and it's expected to peak somewhere in the vicinity around 500 miles wide as far as tropical storm force winds. That is away from the center. So it's right now just north of Turks and Caicos. It will continue that west northwest trajectory and then heading up to getting close to Cape Hatteras. They do actually have mandatory evacuations in Hatteras Island that started this morning. Those will be going on to tomorrow. Even though it will not likely make a direct hit across the U.S., we'll have indirect hitbacks as far as like dangerous rip currents all across the eastern seaboard. You can see where this red shaded area is. Those are your rip currents. And then typically every year rip currents are something to be concerned about, because you actually have more weather fatalities in rip currents than you do actually have when wind and tornadoes. So definitely don't let your guard down. This is a massive storm well out in the open waters, but it is going to be stirring up some dangerous swells, a lot of beach erosion, and with that continued west-northwest track, we'll likely see some tropical storm warnings and watches take place across Cape Hatteras, those areas across at least the coastline of North Carolina, because every little model update, it actually is getting just a little bit closer. I mean, it's probably too close for comfort, right? As it continues with that west-northwest trajectory. So if we take a look at the latest, hurricane guidance, this is what we're talking about. Look how close it actually gets. That's that formidable eye. This is the HWRF. This is the hurricane model going into Thursday morning. So right now it's further south by the Turks and Caicos. It's expected to take that west-northwest turn and eventually take a little bit more of a northerly turn. But every single model update as it's been coming in, it's been trending just a little bit further west. And every little bit nudge obviously will bring it closer to shore. And it doesn't have to make direct impacts. That wind field expands so far, it's going to be a massive storm now that it's coming out of that eye wall replacement cycle. So yeah, it doesn't really have to have direct impacts to have concerns and have indirect impacts, especially along the eastern seaboard, as far as you got dangerous waves out there, some 150, 250 miles out. You're looking at 70 to 90 foot waves out there in the Atlantic. And then closer to shore, about 15 to 20 feet waves just off the shoreline. So yes, you're talking about a lot of beach erosion with this storm. So the latest track does in fact is 140 mile per hour major hurricane, category 3, now category 4, moving that west northwest trajectory about 10 miles an hour. It continues that trajectory, continues to be a major hurricane, and then it downgrades to a hurricane sometime on Thursday morning, and eventually it'll be swept out and moved out into the open waters. But we'll just have to see how close it actually gets. And with that wind field being so far away from the actual center, you're still going to have indirect impacts with this system. But we're not done, right? We're heading into the peak of hurricane season. So yes, we're always looking at our next storm. And right now, the National Hurricane Center, right on its heels, another 60% probability of yet another storm likely to form. It would be Ferdinand on its heels. One thing it has going for Ferdinand is it's going to be crossing a lot in the same general vicinity as Erin, and they've already brought up a lot of upwelling. So that's going to be probably holding Ferdinand a little bit more at bay, because it's essentially, following that same trajectory. You can see where Erin is now, where this is currently, and where it's projected to go, right along into that same vicinity with overall that next system. But as far as the heat's concerned, right, we're still in the heart of summer. It's still going to be hot. And so that's why we've got storms to the north. But eventually we have this little bit of a cooler shot of air with this cool front that's going to be draping across and moving southbound in the days to come. That's going to bring rounds of storms and rounds of rain further south as you move. So as we head into tomorrow, we should start to see some scattered storms start to break out right along that cool shot within areas of Oklahoma, back into Missouri, as well as into Arkansas, back into Illinois, getting into Indiana. We'll have another piece of energy where you've seen a lot of the monsoonal rains this season. You'll start to get even more rains in the days to come in portions of New Mexico. And then as we head into Wednesday, I think that front likely settles somewhere in the vicinity of central Texas. It'll stall out here in southeast Texas by Thursday and Friday. But then overall, it'll bring another round of showers and thunderstorms along with it across the Dallas-Fort Worth area, back into East Texas, getting into portions of central Texas, back into Arkansas, northern Louisiana, as well as into Tennessee and Kentucky, getting all the way up into West Virginia. But overall, for the next 2 days, this is kind of what it looks like. And if you're looking at this, kind of looks like popcorn, right? This is popcorn variety showers and thunderstorms likely bubbling up in the heat of the afternoon after that 3 o'clock time frame. So between 3 and 9 o'clock, you typically don't have too much of a capping inversion. You've got low steering currents in a summer type of environment. So all you got to do is hit close to convective temperature for these showers and thunderstorms to kind of bubble up in the heat of the afternoon. And that's exactly what's going to unfold, especially with the cooler air aloft with that little cool shot that's going to be diving southbound. You'll have some heavier amounts with that boundary further north across Minnesota, back into Wisconsin, and further north into Milwaukee. That's where they have that slight risk for severe storms and excessive rainfall today. But there's the rain that's coming with Erin. That's through Wednesday. And of course, it gets a little bit closer on Thursday. But there is the dangerous waves. They're going to be well offshore, right? I mean, if you're looking at this white shaded area, that's likely 150, 250 miles. I mean, some of the model guidances, you're looking at 70 to 90 mile per hour wave, not 70, 90 foot waves out there into the Atlantic. And it's not out of the question. That's actually happened before with Ivan, and it's happened with Lewis. Ivan in 2004, Lewis in 1985. We've seen some isolated 90-foot waves. So it's definitely not out of the questions. And of course, some of the models are a little bit overdone at 109 feet. I don't think we get near that. But if you're talking about the shoreline, sure, it's going to be well less than that, right around that 15 to 20 feet. That's definitely nothing to sneeze at. That's what you got to be prepared for across those areas of Cape Hatteras. That's why we have those evacuation warnings mandatory in place. So if you're looking at the surface map on Thursday, look how close it gets, right? This is the latest European guidance. And again, like I mentioned, it gets a little bit closer almost on every single run, each of those runs would likely impact a little bit more of Virginia as well as into North Carolina. With that, with those rip currents, with the high beach erosion, the high swells, getting into some heavier rains, especially along the coastal areas. So that will continue on Thursday. And then there's the overall setup on the integrated water vapor imagery. We'll look at that formidable eye that'll be hanging across into North Carolina. So this is definitely a formidable storm. Luckily, it won't be making direct impacts to the U.S., but will likely have a lot of indirect impacts with it into the days to come. But what's to come after that is a welcome shot of cooler air for a good part of the country, at least in the central and eastern 2/3. As we flip the calendar in the next week, we've got a bona fide little cold front as we're going to be talking about. We're talking lows in the 40s up here and across Minnesota, into Wisconsin, as well as into Iowa. That will only dive a little bit further southbound. So you'll wake up by the time we head into next Tuesday morning across the UP of Michigan, across the areas of the Great Lakes, into New England with temperatures likely in the 40s. That is going to feel really nice and kind of a taste of fall out there with this stronger front for August standards. But it's not just the northern interior, even the southern interiors will likely get into the action as that filters a little bit further south. By the time we head into Wednesday, we're talking Oklahoma could be in the 60s. So it's going to be feeling it in a big way, but that's, of course, it's not until next week. So guys, I appreciate you watching. Do like this video. Definitely hit the subscribe button and catch the next update. Wire protect you before and after the storm.